I just wanted to talk about this place called Hell's Gate. It's in Bridgeport, Texas. The description of the haunting is as follows. I went there with some friends. We went and parked our cars about 40 yards from an old wooden bridge, which is about 30 to 40 feet long. It was around midnight to 1 in the morning. We walked across the bridge. Story goes, once you have crossed the bridge, you have just gone through Hell's Gates. From there, you have entered the demon's domain. Anyway, we walked across the bridge as I said, and went up a small foothill covered with tree branches. As soon as we got to level ground, we were on a dirt road covered by tall grass, which was about 10 to 15 feet high on each side. At the time, it was very warm. We walked about 30 feet, and we were past the tall grass. As you walk down further down the road, it got colder and colder, and you can sense a presence. Well, I decided to look to my right in an open field, just in front of a wooded area. There was a small black figure in the shape of a man, about 4 feet tall, with glowing red eyes. As we walked further down the road, I could swear I saw him keeping up with us in the pasture. Once we got quite a bit away from the bridge, we came up on a log going across the road. The log was very long and covered the entire road. Even with 10 to 12 people there, it was much too heavy to move, so we left it there. Now keep in mind that it was cold enough to wear a heavy jacket at this point, but the strange thing is, it was the middle of the summer in Texas. Well, me and a couple friends decided to walk back to the bridge, and the others wanted to keep walking. So we turned around and started heading back for the bridge. I then looked to my left and noticed that the figure that was following us earlier started walking with us, and that kind of freaked us out a little. So we started running. The figure kept up with us the entire time, and as soon as we got to the tall grass, it was gone. I then turned around and walked past the tall grass to see if I could see it, but it wasn't there. So we went to the bridge and waited for the others. After about 45 minutes they returned, so we all decided to leave. We got in our cars and went driving around some. We turned down this road and that road, then turned down the same road we were walking on, and all of a sudden, we stopped at the place where the log was across the road. It was gone. After that, we then drove down to the bridge and got out and decided to go somewhere else. So we turned the cars around and started leaving when all of a sudden we stopped. So I got out of the car and looked around and saw that the log was once again blocking the road. I thought we were trapped in and I got scared. So we turned around once again and drove back to the bridge. We all got out and decided to go back and try to move the log with one of our vehicles, because one was a big 4x4 truck. But when we got to where the log was, it was gone, so we left in a hurry. And since then, we have returned a few times and seen the log in the road, but we never drove our cars down the road ever again. I know this might sound kind of silly, the whole log incident, and maybe you might find the apparition story a little bit crazy too, but believe me, this is 100% factual. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true, honestly, but you can just take my word for it, as it's all you have. Thank you. Oh God, where do I even start? I've always been afraid of the paranormal. I always believed that me seeing or experiencing the other side would be the end of me. I can now say that it has only made me stronger and even braver. All my life, I've lived with Jesus in my heart, being a born-again Christian. Whenever I felt alone, or not alone, I would say a prayer and feel alright. I have a few stories with ghosts, or let's just say the paranormal. Keep in mind that I am only 16 years old. 1 year ago, there was a spot in my town where a bunch of woods and a giant field was cleared out and made many wealthy homes. It was in a historical area where there is a lot of Native American memorabilia and such. Anyway, one of my friends had just moved into one of the homes, and he had a few of us sleep over. So we were in his finished basement playing with a Ouija board and listening to the radio. It was pretty corny, and nothing happened, so we put it away. We all got freaked out, even though we were all sports jocks, and threw it in a little patch of woods he had in his backyard. So we went back in his house, just hanging out, with our sleeping bags all set up on the floor. We finally shut the radio off, and now being about 11 p.m., it was late enough to do some damage, so we got eggs and toilet paper and went into the new neighborhood and wrecked the houses and cars. We got back at about 12:30 a.m. and decided to go to bed. We turned out the lights, the radio was already off, and went to sleep. The radio turned on, playing the station that we were listening to previously. It then changed to someone singing Ring Around the Posies, pocket full of posies. We got so freaked out because it was definitely not the radio. It sounded like a little girl. Then the radio shut off, and we heard a nasty sound. It sounded like a distorted, whirling and humming noise. The radio started blasting, and the lights began turning on and off, flashing really quickly. We were so scared, not one of us moved or said a word. When the lights were flashing, I saw in the corner of my eye a dark, tall-colored man. There was no shadows when the lights turned on, and he almost looked transparent. I know this because after I saw it in the corner of my eye, I looked straight at it, but the next time the light went out, then back on again, and moved to a different part of the room. It looked like an Indian, but at that time, I was not so sure. The next morning, after no sleep, we found ourselves in the living room on the main floor. We told my parents all about it, and they said they hadn't heard a thing. When we went outside, not a single drop of egg or toilet paper was on any of the surrounding houses, except for my friends. I'm not lying. This is 1,000% true, and it was on the local news. My friend's parents had the Warrens look at the house. If you aren't familiar with them, the Warrens are a famous ghost hunter who live in Connecticut. They came to the conclusion that the house was indeed haunted, and it was built over an Indian burial ground. We went to the library and checked the records, and that was true. I never slept over his house again. 2 other houses on either side of his reported hauntings and strange things as well. Another time, I was at my friend's house and was running down her hallway in her basement. I was stopped dead in my tracks by some force. I stopped so suddenly when I was running so fast that my body jerked itself backwards, about 3 inches in front of my eyes. I saw this white smoky thing fluttering up and down in one movement. It is so hard to put in words, and the feeling I got was very peaceful, believe it or not. Another experience of mine was at my cousin's house in Waterbury, in Connecticut, of course. She lives in a private drive that consists of only 5 houses, including hers. When I slept over, I always had a bad feeling. I've seen dark men walking into her basement, and seen white people going the opposite way. Her remote control was missing for about 3 weeks. They searched high and low, everywhere for it. Couldn't find it anywhere. One day my uncle was taking a nap on the couch, and when he closed his eyes, he heard something drop on the kitchen table. He opened his eyes, and the remote was there. He was the only one in the house at the time. One thing that I understand is not to mess with the paranormal. Many people say that they cannot hurt you, but I do not believe that to be true. Not all of the ghosts are angels. A lot of them are demonic. My word of advice is to pray to God whenever you feel uncomfortable in a room, or even if you don't pray or you're not religious. Try to find some solitude in the fact that they can give you more power if you think about them and you fear them. Don't mess with anything unless you know what you are doing. And don't ever play with a Ouija board. That's definitely a no-no. Hello. I would like to share with you some incidents that have happened to me. In November of 2000, my family and I purchased a wonderful old house that was built back in the 1860s. Well, anyway, my first thought of the house was that it is haunted, and now that I've lived there almost a year now, I think that my thoughts have been confirmed. Incident number 1. A friend and I were up late one night, sitting in the bedroom off the living room, and we had the door open so that we could directly see into the living room, and my 2-year-old's rock and roll Elmo doll started going nuts, repeating over and over again, Elmo, Elmo, and after a few minutes of that, it finally started singing the tune it was supposed to play. Keep in mind that her and I were the only people there, and we see nothing by the doll that would cause it to do that, and the batteries were brand new. Incident number 2. While my family and I were sitting in the living room, watching TV one night, I heard some strange music coming from the fireplace room, and when I got up to investigate the music and where it was coming from, I found out that the music was coming from my locked curio box. It was my daughter's wind-up music box playing, and it played the entire song. Keep in mind that this music box has been locked in this curio cabinet for about 5 years. We did not even take it out when we moved. Incident number 3. I was in the bathroom one evening and looked over just one time to see the whole roll of toilet paper fly off the spindle, and it's happened more times since then. Incident number 4. I got up late one night to get a bottle for my newborn baby, and all that we had on that night was a nightlight, just bright enough so that you could see around the kitchen. Anyway, I get all done making her bottle and start going back up the stairs. I look over my shoulder to see the reflection of a man sitting at my kitchen table and my glass sliding doors. I ran up the stairs and was scared out of my gourd. My last story is one that kind of spooks me the most. I was about 8 months pregnant with my last child when we moved into this house, and I had her name picked out. It was Pearson Michelle. That was going to be her name. And then one night, just out of the blue, I decided to name her Pearson Amelia. My husband asked me why I made such a sudden change, and had no good explanation to give him for it. I just said I don't know, I guess. It just sounds good to me. Well, about a month after she was born, my mom called me up to tell me that she had done some history researching on the house, and to all of our amazement, a very original owner of the house is named Amelia Poole. I to this day don't know if it was just a coincidence, or maybe she had something to do with it. Well, I could go on even longer about my experiences, but these were some of the ones that stick in my mind. I live in Woodstock, Illinois with my mother, stepfather, and 3 older stepbrothers. Right now, I'm 15 years old. When I was about 5 or 6, we moved into our new home and got settled in. Now I know for being so young I shouldn't remember stuff, but in this instance, I did. I lived in the house till I was about 8 or 9 years old, and to this day, every time I pass it, I get a very uneasy feeling. The story as I heard it from my older brother is that our house was built by a preacher. He had built it for his wife, but according to the story, the preacher's wife left him for another man. The preacher stopped going to his church and stopped just plain out living. He ended up dying in the house all alone. He always wanted kids though, but to me, there seems to be something else. Let me elaborate. Any married couple that lived in that house, including my stepdad and his ex-wife, always separated. The presence of the preacher was always there. He was also very kind to children. At one point, I was running up the stairs with our dog named Pitt. I almost fell, but felt myself being caught and pushed the other way, so I fell onto the stairs and was able to catch myself. I used to try and tell myself how lucky I was to have caught my balance. That fall could have killed me. I now know that it isn't my luck at all. It was a nice man who helped me live. But there was something else. Something dark in that house. Everyone who lives there feels it. Fights used to break out between my members of family, for no apparent reason even. We could all be perfectly happy at one point, then suddenly on a whim, we all felt angry and pissed off. It was a curse on the house, I think. I pass by that house on my way home from school now. Still I shudder and have to turn away. There are 2 boards on in front of the house. We have put them up to fix the house. Those boards have been the same color since we put them up, no matter how much you paint them. No matter how much we tried to fix something, it refused. It would fix for about a day, then break or get trashed just as quick. While I remember the nice preacher who once saved my life, and many occasions I'm sure watched over me, I will never forget the deep dark presence that would scare the hell out of me whenever I was alone. I sent in a story about a week ago. That story had to do with a friend of mine, Stephanie, and her experience at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This time, I want to talk about my own experiences. About 2 weeks ago, I was snooping around at a local antiques dealer when I came across a painting I just knew was mine. It was a 19th century portrait of a young woman. She's so beautiful. She's a young Caucasian woman in a lovely full gown of a pale shade. She has brown hair, which is swept up to show her features, as well as the most incredible eyes of a very deep brown. Well, I saw her and grabbed the portrait immediately. I paid $90 for it, which is a little inexpensive for a portrait as good as this one. Anyway, I took her home and put her in my room. As soon as I had brought her home, I started to feel uneasy. She was giving me the creeps. I chalked it up to my mind running away with me and tried to ignore it. When I was getting ready for bed, I decided I couldn't stand her, and seeing that I didn't want my puppy to chew her up, I put her in the guest bedroom. I felt much better as soon as she was gone, and then I went to bed. About an hour later, I started to hear things. I swear that the door to the guest room kept opening and closing, sometimes softly, like something was looking out into the hall, sometimes with great force, so that I thought the door would be torn from its hinges. I was terrified, I won't lie. I lay in my bed with the covers over my head and reassured myself that my cat, who also slept with me, wouldn't notice anything before me. That's when the footsteps started. They just seemed to pace the hall. Sometimes they would stop for a minute, but then they would start again. This went on the whole night. It has happened subsequently every night since. I still haven't moved into my bedroom. I tried to move her in here after the first night, but then while I was trying to fall asleep, I looked over and saw a silhouette of a woman on my wall. She was staring out the window. My cat refused to move. She sat next to me and hissed all night. After that, I put her back in the guest room. She's so beautiful, I don't want to return her. There's no signature on the painting, though whomever painted it had to have been very good. I've never seen a portrait as well done as my lady. I'm at a loss as what to do. I can't take this for much longer, but I'm also not too thrilled to have whoever is unhappy in my home. What can I do? And is it really the painting that is distress? My brother and parents have heard the footsteps, but they refuse to believe it's anything other than me playing a trick. It is said that during World War II, it was used as a housing for the Royal Air Force. I'm talking about the former American military housing. During this time, there was a large storm surge in the North Sea, killing many residents in the complex. I never took much heed until I was stationed at Woodbridge, AB, while in the US Air Forces in Europe. I was assigned to housing in this complex. probably 2 months when weird things started happening. The first was small, but weird all the time. First, let me add that the doors are triple locked, bolted, chained, and keyed locked. Upon waking to what I thought was a cat moaning, kind of like one sounds in heat, I went downstairs to get a look and see. I did not notice anything immediately. I looked out of the kitchen door and saw nothing. It is well lighted. I turned to go towards the back door when I noticed that the cabinet doors were wide open, as well as the drawers. I shut them, then continued towards the door, looked over to my left. My stereo speakers were facing the corners in which they were placed. I then got suspicious and called for my wife to come look. We noticed that the dust surrounding the speakers were undisturbed. Not that we did not clean. The wind blows so hard off the North Sea, it constantly blows dust under the doors and around the cracks of the windows. Anyway, we laughed it off and commented that we must have had a prankster ghost. About a week or so later, I was watching TV. I still remember the show, Challenge Annika. The wind was blowing through the back door especially strong that evening, and I asked my wife if she would mind shutting the door. She was mad at me. She blurted out to tell the ghost to do it, joking as well as being sarcastic. I shouted, "Hey ghost, would you shut the door?" Amazingly, the door immediately and slowly shut. Let me remind you that these North Sea winds are strong and constant, and takes force for a man to shut. The door was old and creaked like in the old movies, but we both looked at each other and my wife, and said let's go out and eat tonight. I snatched up the keys, and we went out and ate tandoori that night. The experience seemed remarkably innocent for a while, though the small bouts of activity still startled us. It wasn't until a few days later that I got to see this prankster ghost. My wife had been away shopping. It had been in the middle of the night, 9 p.m. to be exact. I heard the front door open and slam, and initially thought that my wife had returned home. At the time, I was sitting in the living room watching television. I asked her if she needed any help with the groceries, but there was no response. Thinking that was unusual, because again, I knew I heard the front door open and slam. I got off the couch and went to the front door. To my surprise, there was nobody there, but I felt a slight breeze of cold air touch my back. Confused, I headed back to the living room, and that's when I noticed a figure that was dressed in camouflage, reclining on the couch, staring straight ahead at the television, almost as if being frozen. When I walked into the room, I had gotten a view of him from the side. He faded pretty quickly, and he didn't seem to move, but at that moment, it felt like a lifetime. In reality, it had only been about 20 seconds. He also had his mouth open. Interestingly enough, he had the appearance of an older man. I remember feeling incredibly sick to my stomach afterwards. That was when my wife shortly returned home from her grocery shopping. Let me just say before I end this, that before these incidents, I was a true skeptic, laughing at any mention of such things. But now, I try to learn all I can on the subject. Hey everybody, thanks for joining Phantom of Darkness's army, and thanks for being a subscriber and listening to these stories. Aha. So guys, please do your best to comment, like, share, and subscribe. You hear the dogs in the background, but they're not trying to be dogs unless they're told to. So remember guys, you can be a dog yourself. You just gotta be told to be one. I don't know what that means, guys. Anyway, so everybody, I just want to let you guys know that I hope you have a fantastic holiday season. I'm still going to be here, obviously. I just want to let you know that. You know what I'm saying? Slur my words. Anyway, so yeah, I really have nothing to say, guys. It's been really busy, I know that, but please do your best to, comment, engage with me, talk to me about these stories, because I thought these stories were amazing. I honestly thought they were way better than the stories in the last video, and I think I understand why that video didn't do as well. 4,000 views is still decent, but you know what? You guys know what I mean. It's just, like, there's something about these stories that I really, really enjoy. Like, there's more of a creep factor this one. that wasn't present in the other video, and I'm so excited about the story so much that they make me slur even more than usual. So, I mean, I guess that's good, right? Anyway, guys, I really have to go. I probably have to go potty, and then Nun needs me to hug her. Whatever. What the hell am I doing? What the heck am I saying? I really don't know. Seriously, guys, it's great to be back. I just get so excited when I upload a video, so gibberish just spews out of my mouth like it's nothing. Like it's a one big hot cake. I don't know what that means. Again, I gotta go, guys. I really have to go. Love you.